Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Keys to the Kingdom. I'm Marissa, and today I wanted to we've kind of taken a break between our whole word study videos because I've been busy with life. And I wanted to do a video about a subject I'm sure everybody's interested in. Of course, we all love subjects like this. I did one video regarding the alien agenda. That was after, the government was coming out with, they were starting to reveal information, or they said they were going to reveal information. But this particular video, this is actually going to be part 2, just a continuation. Anytime I get or gather information regarding this topic, I'll just keep it in line with the alien agenda videos. But this particular topic that we're going to discuss today, I have taken quite a bit of time to study. I've been studying it off and on for many years. Many years. But just recently, within the last year, very in depth. And I'm going to touch on one particular doctor, Dr. David Jacobs, who's a PhD. I'm going to touch on his work. There are some other PhDs who work on this subject as well. I'm not going to get into their work. I'm just going to touch on Dr. Jacobs' work because these are the 2 books that I just finished. Dr. David Jacobs, just to give you some background and some history on him, he has been researching alien abduction since the 1960s, okay? And when he first started doing it, it's not like he was even interested in this subject. It was brought to his attention, he started researching it, it became sort of an interest a little bit. But then he really started going into how some of his peers were taking these people who knew something had happened to them. Some of them had memory of it. Some of them did not have clear memories of it. And we'll get into that when we go through how this happens. And he started talking to his peers about how they go through, it's not really hypnosis, it's more like relaxation techniques, but they do use the word hypnosis, but it's not like you're under a spell or anything. You're just using a technique to get someone's brain into these waves of relaxation so that they can go into recalling certain things that have happened to them that were either traumatic and or things that they can't remember because of what these beings do after they do what they do. Which is, and I'll just go ahead and say it, these people that claim that they were abducted, and mind you, these stories are, the ones that are legit are the same pretty much, with different variations, of course, because they're different people and there's different ships. They're the same type of stories over and over and over again. And what happens is when these people have this experience, they are most of the time not able to remember when they wake up. When they wake up, they know something's off. They know that there's maybe their clothes are on inside out. Maybe they were actually not in their bed. Maybe they were in a different place than they were when they fell asleep. A lot of indicators indicating that something was going on through the night. They might have some bleed through memories. But not full memory of it. Sometimes they will have physical marks on them. Maybe they hit their head. Maybe now there are some people that do have an implant. but that's not all the time. So the discussion that we're discussing today is strictly on fallen angels and how they are present in our world today. Okay? As you can see from the name of the event, it was, "Are the Nephilim walking amongst us?" And that's what we want to sort of delve into today is, are the Nephilim walking amongst us? So let's go ahead and define Nephilim. What are Nephilim? As we know from Genesis 6, Nephilim were the creation, or the sort of the result of fallen angels mating with human women, and creating these giants. Well, in that day, they happened to be giant. But the Nephilim were the result of fallen angel and human mixture. Okay, genetic mixture. So when we talk about, are the Nephilim among us today, we are asking the question, are there fallen angel and human genetic mixtures and creations walking amongst us today? Because Yeshua said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns. And if you do a deep dive into not just UFOs, but when you do a deep dive into alien abduction, it's very, very clear what their agenda is. It's very, very clear. There's not, now the answer as to why might not be so clear. And Dr. David Jacobs gets into that. But the question of what they're doing and what their agenda is very clear. Good morning, Sandy. So glad you can make it, sweetie. Is very clear. And the same scenarios happen. And since the 50s, 60s on through till like the 90s, early 2000s, what was happening to these people who were being abducted were they were taken upon a ship. Now, mind you, these beings are able to take these people through walls, through windows, remove them out of a car. They're able to stifle anybody who might be awake or conscious that's in the room or the area or the car, the vehicle. They're able to render them sort of unconscious for a moment while the abduction is taking place. As they are taken upon the ship, basically the same thing happens. There is this sort of gynecological exam. They're put on a table. They are undressed. Now, mind you, these people aren't really able to move, and they don't want what's happening to them to happen. And I'm telling you all of this from all of the books that I've read regarding this, but we're going to, like I said, we're going to focus today on Dr. David Jacobs. So this was one of his earlier books, The Secret Life. This was first-hand documented accounts of alien abduction. So this whole book are what he narrowed down to be legit alien abduction encounters, and he put them in this book. This was from, I think this is from the 90s. Let me give you the date here. This is, yeah, this one's from 92. Okay. So the focus was actually on what was happening during the alien abductions, you know, since the 90s, and prior to that, Dr. David Jacobs was focusing on, okay, so what's happening when these people are abducted? So like I said, they're taken upon the ship, they're taken through walls, they're able to use this sort of, it's a blue light that they're able to use from the ship that enables the being and the human to go through walls, windows, vehicles, anything that could be a barrier to them and the ship. The ultimate goal is to get them up on the ship. Once they're on the ship, there is this gynecological exam every single time. They're undressed. They do some sort of exam. 9 times out of 10, they are removing either sperm or eggs. And like I said, so up until the 90s, early 2000s, this is what was happening. They were extracting gynecological reproductive parts so that they could create another being with it. So if they're taking the sperm and they're taking the egg, what they would do is they would impregnate a female abductee. And then once she was, I think, 10 weeks, once she was to a point where it was sort of right before she would notice that she was pregnant, because the whole goal is for them to obtain whatever was created inside of her. And they don't want her going and aborting the baby or miscarrying before they can extract it. So the woman would go to the doctor. She would have a positive pregnancy test. She would go to a gynecological exam. The doctor would confirm that she was pregnant. And then 10 weeks later, or however many weeks later, around that, in the first trimester, the fetus would disappear. So she would have a miscarriage, but without there being anything left. Then she would go back to her gynecologist. They would do an ultrasound. And I'm saying but I'm saying that this happened to all the women. Okay, all the women are used for their eggs. They're used to impregnate. They're used to take what was impregnated inside of them. And then they are used to train the beings that were created aboard the ship. Because because these beings would visit her, or the event would occur, they would somehow take the fetus from her uterus and take it upon the ship, and then that's when they do the genetic manipulation with their genetics. Okay? So they have this fetus that they're going to genetically manipulate. Or the genetic manipulation already happened when they extracted the eggs and the sperm, and then they just insert that into her and she carries it, and then they take it out. That's actually probably how it happens, is that the genetic manipulation would have to occur probably before they reinserted it back into her. So, and I know this sounds crazy, but if you read Genesis 6, if you read a lot of the extra biblical texts, this is, well, obviously the fallen angels, the B'nai Elohim, were creating Nephilim. They were mating with human women. This is exactly what's going on with the abductions that we have today, because we know that they're not aliens from another planet, that they are fallen angels. And so all the way up to like 2000-ish in the 90s, the agenda was to focus on, and Dr. David Jacobs' work was to focus on and catalog everything that was happening to these people. Now, I want to make a note here so that you understand. People who are abducted, it's generational, okay? So their parents, one or both of their parents were abductees, one or both of their parents were abductees. It's generational. And if somebody was an abductee and they have children, those children are also going to be abductees. So somehow there's a genetic component that allows these fallen angels to go down a line and continue to abduct people generationally. Because a lot of these people who are abducted, they don't want to be abducted. They want it to stop. In fact, a lot of them have tried to stop. Some have sort of broken out of the trance because they're not able to move. When they're taken upon the ship, they're rendered sort of with the inability to move. And when they're speaking on the ship with these beings, everything is telepathic. These beings don't move their mouth. They don't have the ability to move their mouth. They don't move their mouth at all. And so everything is telepathic when they're upon the ship. So they're not even really able to speak with their mouth. Everything is done in their mind. They're not able to move, so these beings are able to do whatever it is that they want to do with them. Some people, there are some stories in here of people sort of breaking away and running, but the beings always end up sort of, you know, walking over to them, rendering them incapable of moving again, and then bringing them back over to the table and doing what they need to do. Then, after about, like I said, the late 90s, early 2000s, Dr. David Jacobs started noticing that now it wasn't just about removing eggs or sperm to create some sort of genetically manipulated fetus. Now what the abductees were experiencing and seeing were, they were actually seeing and being introduced to this offspring that was created with their DNA and these beings' DNA. And they gave clear description of them looking very, very, very much like these gray aliens with like a little bit of human DNA mixed in. Well, as the agenda goes on, we see that they continue to hybridize these hybrids so that they would more and more look like humans. So I'm actually going to go through, so if we fast forward in Dr. David Jacobs' work, he had a book in between this, but I actually wanted, this one was what I wanted to touch on. This one, he wrote this one in 2015, okay, and this one's Walking Among Us. And this is where now mind you, I just want you to know, Dr. David Jacobs, when he first started doing this, he thought these people were kooks. He thought they were crazy, as most people have for most of the years of us hearing about aliens and abductions. Most people thought that these people were crazy and that maybe perhaps they come from sort of a dysfunctional background, possibly, which gives them sort of this stigma of having maybe mental illness and all of this. But I want you to know, all of the people in this book, all of the people in this book that he chose to document when writing the books, these are professionals. I mean, we're talking about people who are psychiatrists, lawyers, doctors, nurses, people in the military. These are people who don't have any history of mental illness. They don't have any history of instability. They're not on any psychotic medications. They don't use drugs. None of that. And that was very important when Dr. David Jacobs was presenting these works, is that he wanted to make it very clear that of about the 5% that he considered to be legit abductions, because you do have people out there that do have psychological issues, they do have mental illness, and they start to sort of, you know, make things up so that they either feel special or they're just, you know, storytellers or whatever. He said there is a percentage who absolutely 100% believe and know that something's going on. And these people are not just abducted once. They're not just abducted twice. These people are abducted their entire lives. There might be a span of time that goes between one abduction and the other, maybe even a couple years, a few years, but they will always be abducted throughout their lives. Excuse me, let me take a sip. Because remember, the reason we're talking about this is because as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the Son of Man returns. These fallen angels, these fallen angels who are creating these hybrids, are doing something that I didn't even think they would be doing. I mean, I knew there would be fallen angel activity in the last days. I knew that there would be genetic manipulation. I didn't realize to the extent of the program that was happening pretty much ever since the 50s or 60s. Okay, this has been a long time of careful, meticulous, secretive agenda. And it is very much believed, and we have documentation from people that were in the military who are whistleblowers who have come out, that these beings are, that our governments are absolutely, in one way, shape, or form, working with these beings and have exchanged certain things so that they could obtain technology from these beings. And we'll just call them fallen angels because that's what they are. But once we get to this book, The Alien Plan to Control Humanity, this is the book that I'm going to read from today, because certain sections, because I want you to really understand the scope of the enemy's agenda. And I'm not saying that like you have to be scared. Of course we don't have to be scared. I'm not even saying that you have to be worried. And honestly, I don't want you to really like go around thinking that everybody's a Nephilim hybrid. However, I'm sure we've all met a few. I'm just, and now I want to stress this also. Dr. David Jacobs, all of this is done in a clinical setting. Okay, he's a PhD. He teaches at a university in California, Temple University. Everything is done in a clinical setting and is documented in a, you know, very structured, professional way. I'm sharing this with you because I did not fully understand the depth of the agenda or the magnitude of how they were implementing it. Okay? Okay, I'm going to start here. And throughout all of these, now mind you, I'm just scratching the surface today. If you want more information, you're going to have to, I mean, I'll be doing more videos about this later, but maybe not so much regarding these particular books. But all of these people who have been abducted have heard the same thing. All of the legit people that have been abducted have heard the same thing from these aliens, because these fallen angels, they won't tell you why they're doing what they're doing, but they do indicate what they're doing. Okay? And the phrase that these abductees have heard throughout all of these years is, there's going to be a change coming. Okay? There's going to be a change coming. And now some people will talk about abductions and UFOs and aliens, and they'll say these beings are here because they want to help the planet. They want to help man from himself so we don't destroy ourselves with atomic weapons, and we're polluting the earth, blah, 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 blah. And even if they were telling people that, which Dr. David Jacobs does not have any indication in all of his research or all of his, everything that he's documented, there's no indication that that's the reason for what they're doing. But even if they told people that that's what they're doing, fallen angels are liars. Lucifer's a liar. Satan is a liar. They will lie through and through, over and over again. So I wouldn't necessarily even trust that, even if that's what they were saying. But these people are being told, according to Dr. David Jacobs, also, and his partner, what's his name? What is his name? His name has just left me. I knew his name earlier, and his name just left me. But, Hopkins. I know his last name is Hopkins. When his name comes to me, I'll let you know. But it was someone else who has done extensive research and has also done what Dr. David Jacobs has done regarding, you know, going through with these people under quote-unquote hypnosis. It's not really hypnosis. It's more like relaxation techniques. But Bud Hopkins. Thank you. I remembered. Bud Hopkins is his name. But he was also doing the same type of work that Dr. David Jacobs did, even before Dr. David Jacobs. My point is, they've all heard that there is going to be a change. And I'm just going to read certain sections of this straight out of the book so that you can hear what he had to say about this. So it says, during my research for my 1998 book, The Threat, which is the one I did not bring with me today, I uncovered disconcerting reports about alien plans for the future and about a change that's coming. The change would consist of human-like hybrids intermingling with humans in everyday life. Like I said, at around the late 90s, early 2000s, what these abductees were experiencing sort of shifted from the gynecological exams and them extracting fetuses to them actually being presented with these hybrids and then them being taken upon the ships so that they can train these hybrids to become human enough that they're not detectable in society. The change would consist of human-like hybrids intermingling with humans in everyday life. Abductees reported that aliens had told them that soon everyone would be together. I had heard this in similar statements often enough to understand that this was part of the aliens' goal. Now, Dr. David Jacobs refers to them as aliens because he does not understand, nor is he religious enough to understand fallen angels, so he does refer to them as aliens, but he understood that this was part of their goal. Their activities and communications strongly suggested that they were engaged in a carefully conceived program that was directed towards integrating hybrids into human society. Okay, this was back in 1998, okay? Since 1998, I have found an evolution in some important abduction events. My abductees are now being given new additional duties. For the last decade, abductees have told me that although the common abduction procedures still take place, implementing the change has now become almost a full-time occupation for many of them. This is what's going on behind the scenes. This is the fallen angel agenda. Even abductees I have known for many years, because these abductees he's been seeing throughout the course of their life almost. Even abductees I have known for many years have reported this difference, suggesting that the change is now either in effect or has expanded greatly over those years. It is clear now that integration into human society is the aliens' primary goal. All aliens are part of a dedicated program to integrate hybrids into humanity. So when Dr. David Jacobs refers to hybrids, basically the hybrids look very much half human, half alien. Like, you can tell they're alien. And these abductees have drawn pictures and stuff like that. Hybrids, on the other hand, are very, very human-like. Almost undetectable as being human, except for their neurological capabilities. If any of you have watched the series Stranger Things, it has to do with opening portals. It has to do with this kid who can do things with her mind. She can move things with her mind. That is very, very, very much the characteristics of these hybrids and these hybrids. They have neurological capabilities. They can also speak telepathically. They can also make you think and feel things that you have no control over. But when he talks about hybrids as opposed to hybrids, the hybrids are more human-like. They're less detectable as being alien. They perform their duties to fulfill the program's purposes and are all interconnected neurologically. Just like in the show, Stranger Things, there is this hive mind. They're all connected neurologically, just like in that show. It's almost like that's where the show got it from. I'm almost positive that that's what they're trying to display in that show. They're all connected neurologically. All give allegiance to the insectilins. So, for those of you who are not familiar, you have the typical gray aliens that look like a gray alien. Then you have the shorter ones, and there's a little bit taller ones. They're usually always like 3 or 4 feet tall, and then the taller ones are usually always like 4 feet tall. But then you have 2 other... Now, Dr. David Jacobs has only identified 2 others. I know there's some websites out there that say there's 10 or 12 different types of aliens. Dr. David Jacobs has not documented any of those. He has documented the shorter grays, and then the taller grays are still short. They're still like, you know, like one's 3 feet, one's 4 feet. But then you have the insectilins and the reptilians. The reptilians look reptile-like, and the insectilins kind of look like a praying mantis-ish alien type. According to Dr. David Jacobs, the grays are here, the reptilians are kind of maybe overseeing the grays, and the insectilins seem to be running the show. So far, those are the only ones that he has documented. Although, more than likely, above the insectilins are the tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Nordics that have been told about. I mean, there's a lot of documentation about the Nordics. However, and I think it might be in here, I don't know if I'm going to be reading through it today, I don't recall. However, there was an account of an abductee going onto the ship, encountering one of these tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, you know, beautiful, absolutely beautiful looking Nordic type beings. But then there was this sort of break in the, what would you call it, a hologram? And it was actually a reptilian or an insectilin. So it's possible that the reptilians or the insectilins are just making themselves, because remember, they're called shapeshifters, and they can shift their shape and how they look. It's more than likely that they're just portraying themselves, because the Bible says Lucifer comes as an angel of light, so he can maybe make himself look like one of these tall, blonde-haired, blue-eyed beings that you might perceive as being maybe just a regular angel. So it's possible that they're making themselves look like this, and they don't actually look like that. So they're all interconnected neurologically and all give allegiance to the insectilins. They do not talk about healing Earth, or healing, or enlightening humans, or joining together with humans in a cosmic community, or anything else that might help humans. Because a lot of that information is out there regarding these beings, is that they're here to help us, they're trying to join us together, cosmic community, enlightening, Christ consciousness, blah, 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 blah. PhDs have not documented any of that in all of their research. They talk about sending aliens to Earth to live here undetected and eventually to supplant humans. Although the alien program is one of integration, exactly how the change will take place is still a mystery. That's what we don't know. Even abductees have gone aboard the ship and they've asked them why, and they tell them something along the lines of, it's not for you to know. It is possible that integration into human society may merely be a preparation for the change. If this is the case, then the program itself may be an ongoing integration into human society that will continue until the global population contains a critical mass of hybrids, or Nephilim that look like humans. In this case, the change may be a final, as yet unknown event or series of events that will culminate in the aliens' completion of their program. I mean, if you think about it, back in the day, in the days of Noah, when they were creating Nephilim, they were giants. That's kind of obvious that you are not part of human society. You need to be destroyed. It's easiest for us to detect you. Nobody wants a giant around. So maybe they learned from that mistake. And now they've gotten better and they have a better program. Whatever the final event is, it will be exclusively for the aliens' benefit. Abductees and hybrids sometimes have conversations about the change. Bernard talked about it with his hybrid friend. Okay, so Bernard is an abductee, and his hybrid friend Eric is the half human, half hybrid. Or I mean, half alien, half fallen angel, whatever. Their discussion was typical of other exchanges between them, except that Bernard was allowed to ask some questions, which was unusual. Eric's task was to be Bernard's friend, but he was exclusive in answering. I asked him 100 different ways when this change will take place and what the change is. Now mind you, these hybrids are usually assigned to an abductee like almost permanently. So they spend a lot of time with these abductees and the abductees with these hybrids. At one point, it's always soon. So he'll ask him, when is the change going to take place? And he says soon. And I asked him, when you say soon, is soon synonymous in your mind with soon in mine, or does it mean the future? He just smiles. And I said to him, if 70,000 years or 80,000 years, or whatever it was of research, was a shortcut to get an answer, is that soon? And he said, that was long ago. That would not have been soon. Well, would 50,000 years be soon? He smiles. I said to him, friends don't lie to friends. You see how they got this? They got this. Stranger Things got this from Dr. David Jacobs. Friends don't lie. Because that's like a famous line in that show, Friends Don't Lie. He says, friends don't lie to friends. Is this a story you are telling me so you can make me feel enlightened? He says, there are things I cannot tell you, but I would never tell you things that were not fact. And friends do not do that. So I could not do that because we are friends. I tell him, I said, from my perspective, the most horrible experiences in the history of humanity, this is Bernard speaking to Eric, the hybrid, have come from a concentration of power in the hands of a few. I have perceived that you have more power than anyone in the history of the earth. The concentration of that power in your hands is frightening because our future rests in your benevolence and good judgment. There had been people on the earth before that people had looked upon as a savior, and they have done horrendous things. That seemed to kind of shock him. He said, I would never do terrible things. I also tell him that secrecy and stealth are red flags to humans. There is the feeling that if these were good things you were doing, you would be proud to say what you are and do them openly. Always the theme, does this impact our friendship? No, there are things sometimes people cannot discuss openly. The fact that you are candid with this and telling me these things make me think that you are trying to be a good friend. I am accepting that you will not do bad things. I have no ability to stop you, even if you would. But as a friend, I am also being honest with you and telling you that you frighten me. You have the ability to control me, and I don't know what you're doing. The conversation ended with Bernard's frustration with Eric's lack of specific information. Some of what Eric claimed he did not know, suggesting that he was carrying out his function without full knowledge of his consequences. So it's possible that these hybrids / hybrids, you know, these Nephilim, don't even have the answer. Maybe they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They're very robotic. The aliens / fallen angels, they're very robotic. They are carrying out a task. They don't show emotions. They don't get worried. They don't get angered. They might seem a little bit startled sometimes, like if an abductee breaks away, which normally doesn't happen. They might seem a little perplexed, but they don't get emotional. In fact, they don't even show anger. They're not, even when they do things that seem to be horrendous, there's not like an emotional anger behind it, like you would think, like if you're thinking about demons being like angry and wanting to kill you. They don't have that. There's not an emotion behind what they're doing. They're doing things, they're receiving orders, they're carrying out a task, and that's pretty much it. So, regarding the abductee's role in the change, Karen Morgan is a woman who has a mental ability to put up some resistance to her abductors, an ability that varies between abductees. Some abductees have stronger mental capacity than others. She had frustrating talks similar to Eric and Bernard's. Nevertheless, the aliens told her she was considered a valuable component in their plans. In April 2006, she was taken into a UFO where part of the time she was made to inspect hybrids. Karen recalled that a female hybrid consort was with her. She said she's off to the side. Seems like she's saying that she wants me to look at more hybrids, and I'm saying I really don't want to do this anymore. Hey, Jessica, so glad you could make it, sweetie. I'm saying I really don't want to do this anymore. I'm getting a lecture, if I could call it that, on my lack of cooperation with the whole program. And that's basically, you know, you better shape up, or we have ways of making sure that you do. I'm like, go ahead and use them because I'm not going to do it. So let's see what you've got in store. But it's ridiculous because it's like a program. She can't go beyond that. See, I guess the thing is that it's just really horrible because what they're saying is that they're going to integrate these hybrids into society. They're coming, and we, the abductees, it seems like our whole purpose is being abducted. In being abducted is to create these hybrids and get them into society. That's the whole purpose of abductees, is to create the hybrids and get them into society. And I'm saying, well, that's your plan, not mine. I mean, she was a very sassy abductee. She just didn't put up with it. She put up a fight every time. That's your agenda, not mine. You should check with me first. Just because you think it's a good idea doesn't mean I'm going to do it. And they're saying that was the whole point of the whole thing all along. Now, Dr. David Jacobs asked Karen if this came out all at once or if it was something she had picked up over time. She responded, sorry. Of course, I'm going to get some technical difficulties because of the subject. I know it. So he's asking her if this all happened at once or if it's something that she picked up over time. And Karen responds saying, no, I think we have this discussion quite often. It's like this was the whole point of the whole thing. And of course, whenever I say, well, what's the point of integrating them into society? They never tell me that. But there's just this general feeling that this was the whole point and I'm not being a good sport by not going along with the program. A few weeks later, during a neurological engagement procedure, Karen was given a glimpse into the change by a tall gray who stared into her eyes. Just before, she had bitten the thumb of a gray and the aliens were annoyed with her and strapped her to the table. She described it in a conversation with me. I get the sense that he wants me to accept him and participate in whatever the plans are, but it has something to do, in my mind at least, or I'm getting the vision of this taking over the world from them. Could be. The picture is that they're going to replace us, but we have to help them. That's the whole caveat. Like, these abductees have to help them. I'm thinking as this is happening, why would I do that? Are you kidding? No, I'm not going to do that. And Dr. David Jacobs asks, how do they portray replacing? How do you know it's a replacement situation? And Karen says, they're going to replace us with people that look like us. But in this staring thing, it's not quite like that. It's more gradual. I can't tell. The staring thing is more to try to get me to cooperate. And the gist of it is that I have not been at all helpful and they're not very happy about that. And they have to force me to do things. When they take these abductees upon the ship and these events are occurring, sometimes an alien will, or these fallen angel beings, will come up to them with their very large black eyes and they will stare in their face very close. And a lot of times, Dr. David Jacobs calls this scanning. And it could be one or two things that they're doing. They are controlling their mind. They're bringing them into submission with their mind. And they get close to them and they peer into their eyes and they start to subdue them. The second thing that they do is they do a scanning to sort of read the abductee's mind so that they could gather information. And they call it staring/scanning in this book. They can force us, but it's not going to have the same effect as if we just all merely pitch in and help them do whatever it is they want to do, which is learn about Earth. And Dr. Jacobs says, is that what they say? They need to learn about Earth? And Karen says, they don't say it. It's just the image that you get. You know what I mean? The general gist is that I have a lot of experiences. I have a lot of things I could teach them, and I haven't been helpful, and sometimes I've even lied to them. The general impression I get is, this better stop or else. And I say, or else what? What are you going to do? Kill me? And that question just goes unanswered. And even the feeling I'm getting is that I'm not even being cooperative then, and they're trying to bond neurologically with me, and they're not pleased. There's also some sort of bonding that goes on when they do the staring. It's kind of odd. I'm going to skip over some of this and head to this part right here, which says, while reporting a 2006 abduction event, Paula provided me with more information about the program's goal. One evening, aliens took her from her backyard into a UFO. They gave her special yellowish, hybrid-like two-piece clothes to wear. There is clothing that is upon the ship, but it's very boring, basic, and, you know, just very plain. But these were yellowish, hybrid, two-piece clothes to wear. So a bottom and a top that were yellow. After she interacted with hybrid toddlers in one of many rooms containing children of all ages. So she was interacting, they take them up on these ships and they interact a lot with hybrid children, and then hybrid adolescents, and then sometimes hybrid adults. She was taken into another area with over 100 other abductees. There, an insectolin gave them a glimpse of the future and their position in it. So this is what Paula says. Paula? Yeah, this is what Paula says. We're all kind of sitting there in a semicircle. At first, I was just looking around me, but now I'm really looking. I recognize people and they recognize me. And Dr. David Jacobs says, people whom you know in normal life or people whom you've... And she says, that I know from up there. The hybrid, the really human-like hybrid, is talking to us. And I'm not grabbing anything. He's standing in front of us. Whatever he's talking about, it's very technical. It's like everything with this is divided into little segments. And they all fit. The little segments, but separate, that somehow fit together as a whole. And there are people under us. It's not like we all depend on one another. We're all sufficient on our own for God knows what. But the design is that we all come together. And Dr. David Jacob asks, what do they mean by they? Do they mean that the design is that they all come together? Or do you mean hybrids and humans? Or just all the humans come together to form this? She said, yes, it's all the humans coming together. They're directing us, but we're all coming together. This is the most significant thing that's ever happened. We as individual abductees were sort of designed for this. This is also like it's our place in time right now. This is where we fit in. This is where we fit. This is our place. We all seem to know it's true or whatever. Paula's account reinforces, this is Dr. David Jacobs speaking. Paula's account reinforces my contention that the aliens' plan can only be carried out by cooperation between abductees, hybrids, and hybrids, and the insectolins. All must work together to further their interests. The evidence I have found points in one direction, and that is the integration of hybrids into human society for an eventual takeover. I have found no evidence to refute this. Okay, we're going to skip forward to integrating hybrids. Now, when hybrids move into a house, now, mind you, there are many accounts in his research of these hybrids now living, most of them live in apartment complexes. And when these hybrids move into a house or an apartment on Earth, abductees are responsible for continuing to teach them about living in human society. Hybrid knowledge of day-to-day human life is insufficient and uneven. Even though these hybrids look very human-like, they do not act human-like. They're very robotic. There's a lot of things they don't know. They don't know about pop culture. They don't know how to dress themselves. They don't know how to do simple day-to-day tasks. They're very odd. They're very much out of place in society. They can't tell you about past events. They don't know much. And even what these abductees can teach them is very limited. Hybrid knowledge of day-to-day human life is insufficient and uneven. This is partly due to their understandardized training. For example, some hybrids have never seen a fully made bed, while others have seen beds in people's homes. Similarly, some hybrids have never written letters or symbols, while others have done so many times. Specially selected abductees are trained for the responsibility of filling hybrids' gaps of knowledge and smoothing the edges of hybrid behavior. with the single goal of undetected assimilation. That's the whole point of these abductees, is to help these hybrids, these Nephilim, because they're half fallen angel, half human, integrate into society, and then these abductees are supposed to help them with where they kind of seem off. Integrated hybrids are usually between the ages of 17 and 25. Their knowledge about the complexity of human society is still rudimentary. Living arrangements can be puzzling. Relationships with friends and neighbors are foreign. Almost everything associated with intellectual or pop culture is unfamiliar to newly arrived hybrids. They do not understand the subtleties of spoken language. Like, it's almost like, if I can give an example, someone who has Asperger's, the way that they speak and interact, it's like things are very black and white. It's the same thing with these hybrids. There's no gray area. Like, there's no speaking in innuendos or using comedic humor to convey something. Everything is very black and white, so they're very robotic-ish. They have little, if any, aesthetic sense. Consensual romantic relationships baffle them. Although these hybrids have undergone training both on board and in the abductees' homes, they still have very much to learn. Adolescent and young adult hybrids have pleasant personalities. They're generally respectful and dutiful. Because they come from a highly structured telepathic society, they always obey orders. They rarely display anger or hostility. With some exceptions, they are not argumentative or defiant in the face of criticism. They lack the suspicion or wariness most humans their age possess. Often, abductees cannot help feeling fond of the hybrids. They do not sense that their presence represents a threat or perhaps even eventual catastrophe. Because like I said, they don't really show emotion, so they're not displaying anger. But the fact that native human hybrids are moving into society surreptitiously and most likely in huge numbers signifies a covert invasion. Unlike normal immigrants, they're not here because they want to be. They're here only to fulfill the aliens' goals, or these fallen angels' goals. As polite, innocent, guileless, and unsuspecting as hybrids can be, their neural abilities differentiate them sharply from us. So they can seem innocent, dutiful, respectful, non-confrontational. They have a goal. They have an agenda. It is to integrate. And their neural capabilities are very, very different from us. Hybrids use neural engagement to control human actions when it suits them. They use telepathy to communicate between one another or learn a human's private thoughts. Their overwhelming humanness seems to weaken their alien abilities. But even weakened abilities are more than enough to be effective. So their neural capabilities, the more that they become hybridized and looking like humans, does diminish a little. However, it's enough to be useful. So it's not going to be as strong as maybe the Greys or the Insectilins or, you know, the Reptilians. But these hybrids do have neural capabilities that are useful and definitely stronger than anything that we are capable of. Conversely, abductees cannot read hybrids' inner thoughts, and consequently, we do not know whether they have a full range of human emotions. How much they will be able to blend into society is an open question. But humans can be very strange. So hybrids have a lot of leeway before anyone recognizes something is wrong. So it's like, you know, there's a lot of strange human beings that are not hybrids. So basically if someone were to encounter a hybrid and something seems off, someone could just very well think, well, that's a human being. That's just kind of, kind of off. All hybrids are dedicated to their function. Their loyalty is to the program and not to their human trainers. Hybrids and hybrids may develop relationships with abductees, but they focus only on fulfilling the goals of the integration program. Abductees are a means to an end. As hybrids move into their homes, the program of assimilation enters a new phase. Hybrid societal integration is not a complex process. The insectolins oversee the entire program. They have installed an effective bureaucracy consisting of personal project hybrids. So basically you'll have a hybrid that looks more alienish overseeing the integration of these hybrids that look more like humans. Consisting of personal project hybrids, advanced hybrids, security hybrids, and group hybrids to ensure that all goes well in the integration process. Hybrids within the bureaucracy often have overlapping functions, including but not limited to the following: protecting the hybrids, installing hybrids in appropriate living quarters, making sure abductees instruct hybrids how to live within the norm of human society, keeping the program's goal intact, ensuring the abductees are in compliance with alien rules, and reporting recalcitrant abductees to insectolins or tall grays. In other words, reporting abductees that are causing problems to the insectolins or the tall grays. Personal project hybrids now have a critical role in the abductees' lives. Before, they were primarily sexual partners or interested bystanders in the abductees' lives. Yes, there are many, many, many times where an abductee is forced to have sexual intercourse with hybrids to further create these hybrids that look more like humans. Now, with the advent of hybrids, the ones looking more like humans, being trained in the field and then moving in, the personal project hybrids have the duty of keeping the abductees in line, and if they remember anything, not betraying the program to family, friends, or researchers, to make sure abductees are doing what they are told and instructing the hybrids properly. Security hybrids also make sure that the hybrids are safe and that the abductees are obeying orders and not endangering the integration program by talking to others about what they're doing. They are relentless and unyielding in their pursuit of obedience. Personal project hybrids often accompany abductees around and in some cases learn about the world themselves. For example, Betsy's personal project hybrid, whom she called Ken, met her at a supermarket and asked questions about the foods she put in her shopping cart. He smelled the fruit and asked her about whether she cooked eggs, meat, and a loaf of bread. On other occasions, he accompanied her on trips to an ophthalmologist and to her family doctor, sometimes sitting in the room where she was examined. The doctors could see him, but did not seem to care or pay attention to him. When the decision is made to begin integrating into a specific geographic location, advanced hybrids are the first to arrive. Though we know very little about their activities at this stage, it is logical to suspect that abductees help the advanced hybrids become acclimated. Eventually, the advanced hybrids, with abductee help, find a location within their assigned geographic area suitable for the hybrids to live and then obtain living quarters for them. Housing, usually apartments, must be safe and ideally near stores that are open 24 hours a day so that they can satisfy daily needs like Walmart, Target, Walgreens, Kmart, or various supermarkets and convenience stores where they can later enter late at night with a minimal amount of human contact. That explains so much about Walmart, doesn't it? Go to Walmart at night. Maybe you'll encounter a hybrid. Once the advanced hybrids have secured the accommodations an independent hybrid moves into the living quarters. Soon, the personal project hybrid introduces his abductee to the independent hybrid, who becomes the abductee's student and, like the personal project hybrid, a sexual partner. After the independent and the abductee have had a chance to establish a complex personal and teaching relationship, the independent and personal project hybrid and security hybrid takes the abductee to see the younger group hybrids who are also moving in. The more hybrids an abductee encounters, the more important safety becomes. Because hybrids are so critically important for the program's outcome, their safety becomes the program's safety. To protect them, the aliens have established a security force. Like personal project hybrids, security hybrids bring hybrids to abductees' homes for training. But unlike personal project hybrids, security hybrids have no interest in human society. Their mindset is fixated on the program's security and safety. That is all they think about. Abductees are not to talk about the program to anyone. They must do exactly what security hybrids dictate. If the abductees continue to talk in the face of pressure, violence can be used to stop it. Now, regarding violence, which there's not usually much of, security also means protecting hybrids from violent humans. So let's say you introduce a hybrid into society, which is basically a Nephilim into society, but they're human-like. They have to protect them from being assaulted by humans. When an abductee reports to me that hybrids on board mentioned concerns about violence, I was at first somewhat puzzled, given how all types of aliens can control humans. The more I learned, however, the more this concern seemed logical. I was already aware that abductees on board sometimes regained mental control and they get loose, run down hallways, and physically attack aliens. Moreover, considering the vast number of abductees operating within the system, one can imagine all sorts of scenarios where violence may become an issue, whether through loss of control of an onboard abductee, conflicts arising during field training and experiences, or resistance from non-abductees when hybrids use their mental abilities to try to control them. Violence also takes place among personal project hybrids and security hybrids. They do not hesitate to use it on chronically disobedient abductees. They routinely instill headaches into those who describe their experiences to researchers. So those who are constantly going to people like Dr. David Jacobs and explaining their experiences, they will routinely instill headaches. They push women backwards on the floor and pick them up by their hair. They press their thumbs into abductees' cheeks, causing pain but leaving no mark. If the abductee is still recalcitrant, they may resort to vivid death threats, and they sometimes force abductees' heads into water until they think they are drowning. Insubordinate women have had cuts made to their genital area. This causes little or no bleeding, and within a day or two, the cuts quickly heal. And of course, the abductees know not to go to the hospital. Somehow, the abductees know. They instill this knowing that they should not go to the hospital. If abductees are still uncooperative and the hybrids cannot correct them, even with physical punishment, they're ultimately sent to the insectolins or tall grays who, through stronger neural engagement, try to persuade them to cooperate. The neural capacity is stronger as you go up the chain, I suppose. Although any hybrid can control any one human in a normal situation, it seems that neurally weaker hybrids have difficulty controlling several humans at once. Thus, hybrids are especially vulnerable when threatened by a group of humans. So these hybrids are vulnerable when surrounded by a group of humans. They seem to like to not be in groups. Conversely, they have found that they can mitigate their vulnerability by banding together. They can pool their neural resources to control astriparous humans more completely. So more hybrids together can control better. A hybrid told Betsy an illuminating anecdote about an incident that illustrates their pooling of powers as well as the threat of humans. 3 young hybrids were in a public park late at night in a high-crime area when a group of humans approached and threatened them. Whether the humans were simply violent criminals or detected something strange about the hybrids is unknown. Working together, the 3 hybrids managed to control the humans, but only with some effort. The incident made them all the more wary of human tendencies towards violence. So the aliens are afraid of violent humans because these fallen angels are not by nature violent or emotional. Even though they do things that are absolutely horrendous, they don't consider it like we would to be an emotional outburst or anger or they don't consider it to be violence. This has been reflected with other abductees. Eric told Bernard that human tendency to be violent must be controlled. Paula had the same conversation with her hybrids, and therefore it is possible that the grouping of hybrids from 2 to 4 for integration allow them to have physical protection through strength in numbers. Okay. Now, I hope you understand that this is not 1 or 2 abductees telling their story. This is a running theme over and over and over again. I mean, these are people who don't know each other. They have no connection to each other. All of these abductees are in different, they can be in different locations all throughout the United States. Now, this here, I wanted to mention, this has to do with hybrids controlling humans. And this is a instance where this lady, Betsy, is the abductee. Jamie is the hybrid. And it's regarding something that happened at a supermarket. But she says, I'm telling him you can't do things like that. Basically, Jamie the hybrid was trying to force a cart towards him. She said, you can't do the thing like that with the cart that he did when we first walked in. And he's not quite sure why he can't do that. I said, that's not normal behavior to move things with your mind. 2 humans wouldn't do that. Somebody wouldn't just walk in and know that you, oh no, what he did was he forced a woman who had a cart to push the cart over to him. She said somebody wouldn't just walk in and know you needed a cart and give you theirs and then go get another one for themselves. You're kind of on your own when you go in there. You get a cart. She's just trying to teach him how to go into a grocery store and get a cart. You get a cart if you need it. If you forgot, you go back in and get it. You can't force people to do that. Betsy's correction of Jamie makes it easy to forget that even though he's not supposed to force a human being to give him a shopping cart, he is still using Betsy to help him with her consent. For hybrids, controlling humans, even in a minor way, can be a normal part of their function as superior beings. This is part of the major concern that Dr. David Jacobs has with this whole thing, is that these beings have superior functions, and this is a major concern, obviously, for this integrative program, is that they're not just, you know, half fallen angel, half human Nephilim, but that they also have these neurological capabilities that humans do not have to control humans. Another thing that I wanted to mention, this is Bernard. Remember earlier I mentioned Bernard is the abductee, Eric is his hybrid. Bernard asked him, why not throw the rules aside and have a regular uncontrolled conversation with no memory restrictions? Because after every event, they usually control their memory so that they can't remember much. Bernard is asking the hybrid Eric, hey, if we're friends, why not throw the rules aside and have an uncontrolled conversation with no memory restrictions? Eric said this was not going to happen. When I asked him why, he says, this cannot be. This will have to be our private relationship. And I said, well, why? What are you doing that you have to do secretly? Why can't you just tell everyone? He has a big smile on and he says, it's best for everyone that these things are secret. This is a very open conversation. He's letting me say, I think just about everything I want. And I'm saying, well, if you let me know the things you cannot tell me because of the rules, I won't persist and pry and try to get to you. But in turn, I want to know everything about why you are here and what you are doing, even if I forget afterwards. So Bernard's pressing this hybrid Eric to know why he's doing what he's doing and what his plans are, even if he forgets afterward. He's affirming that he cannot do that, and I've told him that I will do my best while we are with each other to be his friend. And he says, well, you said that there is nothing anyone could do for you that would make you appreciate them more than to let you know things you could not. And I said, this is true, but there is nothing in my life practically that would probably mean anything more to me than if somebody gave me $100 million. But that wouldn't make that person my friend. So even though you do this, that doesn't make you my friend. I told him that this was getting overcomplicated, that we needed to talk and do things, and I didn't find it difficult to feel that people are my friends, nor I theirs. It was something that just sort of happened. He's trying to explain to him that I don't have to force a relationship or become friends with somebody. It just sort of happens. But I'm pointing this out because every time they ask, they just say, this cannot be. You know, it's like they smile, like probably some weird, creepy smile. And it's like they can't tell them why they're doing what they're doing. And then on January 24th, Bernard met with Eric again, a few hours before he was scheduled to have a session with me, Dr. Jacobs. Bernard had a doctor's appointment in the morning. When he left the doctor's office, a switch went on in his mind, and he knew he was going to drive to Denny's restaurant to see Eric. That switch that goes off is them controlling him to go somewhere. It was not surprising or puzzling to him. By this time, the two had been meeting and talking together for at least 18 years. 18 years, this abductee has been talking to this hybrid. So this is what happens. So Dr. David Jacobs says, so you park in the space at Denny's. Do you just sit there and wait, or do you get out of the car? And Bernard says, no, I get out of the car and I walk up to the side of Denny's. There's like a handrail there, and Eric is like leaning on it. And he turns and our eyes meet, and the switch to the other world goes on. The other world goes on. Oh my gosh, this is exactly where they got Stranger Things. If everything from Stranger Things is like they got it from this book. Now I'm totally cognizant of Eric. The second I see Eric's face, I remember everything about what I've done with Eric. So he doesn't remember until this sort of switch goes on, and then he recalls everything. What he is and what happens with me, and I'm just aware. He just walks up and extends his hand and shakes it and kind of slaps me on the shoulder and says, "Hi, how are you doing?" Or something like that. He spoke out loud and he says, "It's crowded in here. Shall we go talk in the car?" And there are other people there going by. I'm sure he spoke out loud there, and for some reason I find the handshake interesting. I think that it is for show. I think if I were meeting Eric privately, we wouldn't do that. Because even their greeting people is kind of awkward. They don't have the timing thing down. Bernard and Eric walked into a nearby hotel and sat in the lobby and talked. He's saying that there's going to be a new phase in our relationship. He's telling me that he's gained from this what they learned, and how now he's going to be able to respond and let me respond on a somewhat different level. And he's telling me a lot about this. He's telling me a lot about the change that's coming and its nature and its significance. And he's also telling me he's very negative about me coming to your home or office. He's talking about how Eric is very negative about Bernard going to Dr. Jacobs' office and talking about this. He refers to himself as the ones like me. He clearly is telling me he is much more different from the aliens than he is from me or any human. When he was given this task, he could not imagine identifying with a surface person or an earthling because of our huge limited abilities compared to them. But they are prevented from having personal relationships with each other as we would think of them. So the hybrids themselves can't have personal relationships with each other. They're not allowed to mate with other hybrids. They can only mate with humans. And he started to relate to me that this relationship is every bit as important to him as I've always suspected it was. The aliens wanted him to be a friend and develop friendship as a normalization process for when the change comes that would be expanded to everyone. As this evolved, the significance of all this to him started to become apparent. You know, what he really wants is to have human relations with people with his capabilities. He sees how wonderful his life could be with real relations with people who are like him. And the kind of meaning that friends have to us has been an incredibly exciting thing for him. Not that he is excited about me as a friend, but that he is now realizing what being alive is going to be like. Dr. David Jacobs says, did he happen to say why it was that he was not allowed to have personal relationships with others like him? And Bernard says, yes and no. I asked him that, and for some reason, he couldn't answer that part about me, but they don't want them sexually attracted to hybrid women, and they aren't. They're attracted to Earth women only. What does that sound like? They're actually created and programmed to not be attracted to other hybrids or hybrids, but only to Earth women. The theme that hybrids seek normal relationships with abductees, even though they might be one-sided, does not tell the whole story, however. These relationships can be more balanced than they seem. some special abductees are being purposely trained for by hybrids for work in the program's future. In the summer of 1988, Bernard was on a fishing vacation with his friends on the Kennebec River in Maine. He was outside of a boathouse waiting for a friend when Eric walked up behind him. As at other times, they have had a conversation about what constituted friendship. Bernard told Eric about the different kinds of friends one might have. He said friends do things for each other. They help each other. Therefore, Eric was not really a friend because their relationship was one-sided. For example, Bernard could not ask him questions about his life apart from Bernard. Eric said there were things he could not say, but it was important that Bernard be his friend because Bernard was special. They always tell them that they're special. Bernard said, "I've been hearing I'm special from you people since I was a kid." What does that mean? Why do you say that? He kind of stops me again. He says, "You are special for many reasons, for several reasons." He says, "All of the people from the surface who come to the ships are special because you are all prepared to participate in the great change that will come to humanity. In addition, there are some like you who have been given special information and knowledge so that when the change comes, you will know what to do and will be able to assist or help." Although teaching and demonstrating normal life to hybrids is essential for the aliens program, as Eric said, some abductees have additional and very different roles to play within it. They are subjected to special training situations for possible future responsibilities more directly related to the aliens' goals. They are almost certainly indicative of many thousands more around the world with the same training. Because remember, this is a Earth-wide phenomenon. Everyone on the Earth has these same exact stories and experiences. Okay, this is I'm going to close with this. The meaning of the training. Abductees training indicates that they may provide services much more important than just teaching hybrids and hybrids. Some are being prepared to do alien work, to do fallen angel work. Their training enables them to use their minds to find and control the movements, thoughts, and emotions of other humans. It is possible that, in the future, abductees may be abducting people with or without the aliens' aid. This disturbing facet of training suggests that abductees will supplement the insectolins in their program of integration and control. They may take a much more active role in the abduction phenomenon itself. Thus, abductees are far more integral to the program than had originally been thought. Training abductees to be more neurally proficient is a critical consideration when we think about how hybrids can integrate into society in mass. I had previously thought that mass integration would be accomplished with insectolins and greys directing activities. Although this appears to be partially true, the insectolins have also created a society of surrogates to do the work for them on Earth. These hybrids can ensure that hybrids are smoothly and safely integrated. There may, however, not be enough hybrids skilled in human ways to accomplish the task of mass global society social integration. The most efficient way to manage the program and to facilitate the change may therefore be to expand the number of workers by training abductees to do what hybrids do. This will allow the aliens to have an expanded workforce. Because remember what I said. When Lucifer, whatever name you want to call him, convinced a third of the angels to do what they planned to do by mating with human women and creating Nephilim, he only convinced 1/3 of the angels. So they're still outnumbered by 2/3 of heavenly hosts. So they have to literally expand their workforce when the day comes, because there is going to be the Battle of Armageddon, when the forces of the fallen angels are actually going to go to battle with Yeshua and his angelic forces. They're literally creating an army. Like Lucifer's literally creating an army, and he's trying to create more numbers so that they either equal or outnumber the heavenly hosts in the realm of heaven. The change may therefore be to expand the number of workers by training abductees to do what hybrids do. This will allow the aliens to have an expanded workforce when the time comes. Then some abductees will be more fully involved with the integration plans. Obviously, aliens make abductees do their bidding, and if the abductees had a choice, they would not participate on any level. With what we have learned from the foregoing accounts, we can now attempt to address the larger question of what all this means. We can speculate in a variety of different contexts about how and why the aliens, hybrids, hubrids, and abductees are working in concert to achieve specific goals. But the nature of these goals, other than integration and takeover, still eludes us. But the program's future is becoming clear. My reasoning for sharing this with you today is just so you understand that, you ever heard that phrase, all the world's a stage and we are merely players in it? That is very true. That is very true. I'm sure I'll be doing a part 3 where I have more information about this topic, but I wanted to share with you, to the extent that the phrase, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man returns, has actually gone to what extent it has actually gone to, is integrating these beings into society. My suggestion for you, if you are interested in an actual documented situation where there was military personnel somehow acquired and adopted this, I don't know, I think there was a crash scenario where you had a UFO spacecraft that had crashed, and this military personnel acquired this female hybrid and ended up adopting her. Well, he ended up, this girl who goes by the name of Rachel ends up integrating into a college situation and befriending this girl named Marissa. Well, those are the names that they use in the book to hide the real names of the characters. If you want to read about this, there's a book called Rachel's Eyes. It is from what I know, it's the only documented story. This is not a claimed fictional story. It's supposed to be nonfiction. It's an actual scenario that happened. The woman who wrote the book is the mother of Marissa, who was friends with this hybrid Rachel. And they were in college together. And the mother writes the book telling what happened. Now, it's very interesting that the hybrid would befriend Marissa because Marissa was partially blind. Which would make very, very good sense for someone who doesn't want to be detected. But the book is called Rachel's Eyes. Again, it's the only known documented scenario of a human and a hybrid, or even a hybrid story. So far, that's the only one I've been able to find of a story of a hybrid. Now, you hear stories about abductions. You hear stories about, UFOs. You don't hear as many stories about interactions with hybrids. There is another story of a human encountering a hybrid. I'll have to do a separate video where I can actually pull up the video for you so you can watch it. I should have had it ready for this video. I apologize. Maybe I'll do that later today. And it's very, very obvious that they are not human. Cheryl said it's also a podcast. I've heard... Oh, Sherry, so you've heard the podcast about Rachel's Eyes? Yes, I've listened to that as well. The podcast is with George Norrie. I think that's the one you're referring to. It's George Norrie and the mother who wrote the book, Rachel's Eyes. They go into a lot of detail. Obviously, the book is going to expound more in detail about what happened. But you can find that podcast with George Norrie and the mother, who is the author of the book. Highly recommend it. It's just giving you a peek into what the enemy is doing behind the scenes and what we should kind of keep in the back of our minds moving forward into these days when this change. When I heard and I read about these abductees being told that a change was going to come, it kind of really made me feel very eerie because if you remember during the whole Obama administration, it was all about the change. And I remember very, very clearly when he instituted or he passed the Obamacare, immediately there was a voice telling me he's passing Obamacare because they know that everybody's going to need health care because of something else that's going to happen. Something's going to happen where people are going to need health care more and more. And of course, that's after the jibby jab. People are going to become more sick and have more illnesses. And they're definitely going to need their health care. And of course, they want you to have health care so that you go to the doctor, so that the medical institution makes money. It's all very well planned and orchestrated. But during his whole administration, it was the change. And I don't think it's any coincidence that all of that is being ushered in. And we have the Great Reset. I'm sure that's part of that's going to bring about the change, I'm sure. I just wanted to keep you up to date on some of these things. And I hope it becomes useful for you later on when you, are studying some things out, learning about more things, and seeing things happen in the world. God bless you. I will try to post that video later for you so that you can see the other story that I found. It's just a short video clip of a story of a gentleman who has also been abducted his whole life, but then encountered a hybrid who was moving from, I believe it was Qatar. It was either Qatar or... I don't think it was Abu Dhabi. I think it was Qatar. Somewhere over there, that small country in the Middle East, was moving to Canada. And anyways, I'll try to post the clip later, okay? God God bless you, and I will see you hopefully this Shabbat. Amen. Ciao.